I believe I can bring a unique take on Cunard's new Queen Anne, as I've been on 23 Cunard cruises and spent 210 nights across all their fleet, including most recently 14 nights on board Queen Anne, which gave me ample time to fully test out their latest cruise ship. I was keen to discover if, as some believe, Cunard is trying to chase people like me away from Cunard with their new ship and replace me with new and younger cruisers, or whether in fact they're just trying to offer another ship for me as a regular Cunard cruiser to experience. Welcome aboard, I'm Gary Bembridge, and here's what I discovered. I wanted to see if Queen Anne was a total reinvention for Cunard. The short answer is no. The ship, venues, program and the vibe are very much existing Cunard. But there are some key changes I will talk about later that will have a big impact, I believe, on who the ship will ultimately appeal to. First of all, the ship is not unique nor different. It's based on the Pinnacle class ships used by Holland America, although it has a 23-meter section added in the middle to create what they're calling now the Halifax class. So unlike competing lines like Celebrity, who added a totally different style of ship to their fleet with the Edge class to appeal to a very different audience, this is a very traditional cruise ship style and layout in the mold of Queen Elizabeth and Queen Victoria. However, when I stepped on board, I saw a massive shift in look and feel from any of its sisters. Gone are the darker, heavily Art Deco line-inspired designs of the rest of the fleet. I walked into a contemporary decor ship, which looked very familiar to basically many other ships from other lines to me. It was a shock at first about how far removed from the usual darker and much more obvious Art Deco Cunard decor that it was. I did see some nods to Art Deco here and there, but I felt it was in fact just so like many other ships these days. This is perhaps not surprising because the overall creative director is a man called Adam Tiani, who's also behind ships for Seabourn, Silversea, although there were in fact 3 different design houses actually physically working on the designs. However, once I got past the surprise of how hard they tried not to look like other Cunard ships, I soon came to see it was Cunard in pretty much every other way. Every iconic Cunard venue that I know from the other ships is on board Queen Anne, with surprisingly few additions and innovations. I'll talk about those later, as some are more successful than others. What exists that is on all the other ships? First, it has a grand lobby, a 3-deck atrium. Like other ships, it has a massive ship mural with several venues, bars, shops, restaurant, and the purser's desk dotted around it. I felt it lacked some of the drama of the other ships, but over the course of the 14 days, I did come to like it, and the venues around it did create some buzz and focus on the ship. It has the Queen's Room, which is an iconic venue across the other ships. I found this one a bit disappointing, and in my view, that didn't change my perspective on it. On the other ships, the Queen Room is a grand, dramatic space. This one is a bit understated and is surprisingly plain in terms of decor, with not enough seating when it's busy. There is also an upper area with more seating where you can look down into the Queen's Room and onto the dance floor, and that itself has really divided people. The dance floor is circular in shape, and while some people I spoke to really disliked it, saying it was restricting and cramped, I spoke to others that were part of a ballroom dancing group cruise on board, and they rated the dance floor really highly. Either way, there is ballroom dancing every night to a 10-piece band, and it also hosts entertainment some nights by the guest entertainers. It has, which the other ships don't have, a good size dedicated bar. Another iconic venue is the Golden Lion pub. This is a bigger, more inviting space with a good range of entertainment like trivia, bingo and music. It has, I think, an unnecessary addition of some additional charged dishes, which are done in partnership with the UK chef Michael Rood Jr. And that's in addition to the included items. It's a good venue though. It was very, very popular. Queen Anne also has all the existing iconic lounges and bars that I know from the other ships. There's the Commodore Club overlooking the bow of the ship, which was a really popular venue, especially in the evenings when there is live music playing. It's nicely laid out with kind of booth areas and groups of seating spaces, which made it feel quite intimate. There's Corinthia Lounge. This is a great venue. It's where those who've been on Holland America Pinnacle class ships will know the Grand Dutch Cafe is, but this is way bigger because this is also where part of the added section is, so it's much bigger. It's mostly a coffee shop, although you can get drinks in here, and has various included breakfast and snack items during the day. Another iconic venue on here is the Chart Room Bar. This is a pretty dramatic space with some nice crystal chandelier effects around the bar, lots of seating, and there is music here at night. They also have the Churchill's Cigar Lounge next to the Commodore Club. This one is probably the starkest and least uninspiring compared to the one on the other ships. In terms of the other usual Cunard venues, there is the Royal Court Theatre. Although it's a big theatre, it lacks again the drama and styling of the other ships. It basically looks kind of like a modern cinema, to be a little bit rude. However, it's a pretty good theatre with really comfortable seating. It's got good technology on the stage for the shows. It does actually, though, have poor sightlines in the whole front section, I found. Of course, Queen Anne has another Cunard icon, the library. This again isn't as big or as spacious, nor seem to have as many books as on the other ships, but it's a nice space and was certainly, like on all Cunard ships, really popular. It also has another key iconic feature, which is a full promenade deck. However, this was divisive because for much of the deck, as you walk around, the view of the ocean is blocked by lifeboats. It's not a teak deck and there's almost no deck chairs and places to sit out because there basically isn't any room because the lifeboats are there. It even has what has become a standard Cunard feature, the Clarendon Art Gallery, although of course this is basically a commercial proposition. So Queen Anne does have all the venues that Cunard travellers like me are used to. The other iconic thing of note is that Queen Anne retains the classic Cunard class-based system, though it's clear from how they executed on Queen Anne that they're also trying to push the line to feel a little bit more premium and increase the number of premium fare-paying passengers. More on that shortly. Let me briefly explain the Cunard class-based system. It has 4 of them, and the grade of cabin you book determines which restaurant you eat in. You dine in Britannia restaurant if you're in inside ocean view and regular balcony cabins. Britannia Club Restaurant is for those in more well-appointed and premium balcony cabins. You dine in Princess Grill if booked in a mini suite, and Queen's Grill if in a suite. The way I often explain it to people is think about the different classes on an airline. Britannia is economy, Britannia Club is economy plus, Princess Grill is business class, and Queen's Grill is first class. That's a good way of thinking about it. Now I dive in depth into the grill's experience and what's good and bad versus the rest of the fleet in a separate video. Something that struck me about Queen Anne versus the other Cunard ships is they've significantly increased the numbers in the more premium Britannia Club and Princess Grill classes. The Britannia Club restaurant is huge. It's a really huge restaurant compared to other ships, while those in Princess Grill are actually now double the number that are on Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth. Queen's Grill has basically the same number of people though. Like many cruise lines, Cunard has used Queen Anne to shift the mix on board towards higher fare paying passengers, it seems. There were other signs other than the cabin changes that they're trying to look more premium. For example, the shops around the Grand Lobby are very upmarket shops. They also include what they call a cabinet of curiosities section with replicas from Garrard jewelers of some of the British royal family tiaras and Princess Diana's engagement ring. The shops also featured expensive Fabergé eggs, Rolex watches, and so on. There is, though, by the way, a separate part of the ship near the Queen's Room where the more regular shops, as it were, are. They're trying to create, I think, the sense of being a more premium line. 2 more points I wanted to make before exploring some changes that Cunard made I found interesting is that, first of all, they have no solo cabins, despite actually retrofitting them on some of the other ships in the fleet. And secondly, on their ships, the Britannia restaurant is a really dramatic and magnificent venue due to the heavy Art Deco styling. On Queen Anne, while Britannia restaurant is a striking venue, it's no more so than any other competitive line main dining room. I found that kind of disappointing. I want to give my thoughts on what Cunard have added, improved and reimagined compared to their other ships now. First, one of the best things that they've introduced is a new entertainment venue called the Bright Light Society. It's a cabaret venue which becomes a disco nightclub late at night. They hold innovative and fun cabaret style shows in here which are included, by the way, in the fare but do require booking. Their shows include Noir, which is a murder mystery with audience participation, which even I got involved in, and Fizz, which was a fun, complicated love story. The shows are tongue-in-cheek, high energy, and great fun. Some nights when they're not performing, they do have some of the music duos, for example, performing here too. They are definitely leaning a little bit more into wellness. The Mariel Spa and Fitness Center has, unlike most cruise lines and their other ships, been put right down on deck 1. The gym itself is bigger than the rather disappointing gyms on their other ships, with a cardio, weights area, and spin studio. The spa itself is large and also includes a separate hairdressing and nail salon and a large thermal area with thermal bath and various types of saunas. They have a few other wellness-focused spaces around the ship, with the Pavilion Wellness Cafe, which serves healthy options for breakfast and lunch, included in your fare. And above that is the Pavilion Wellness Studio. It's a large, rather stark venue, though, but they do hold many of the fitness classes like stretching, yoga, HIIT classes, and so on there. Queen Anne carries more passengers than any other Cunard ship, 3,000 passengers, which is almost 1,000 more than Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth, and 300 more than Queen Mary too. But it did not feel crowded and it didn't feel busy, because the ship has been designed to scatter venues like the bars and lounges in different places around the ship. So it spread and dispersed all the passengers around the ship. Out on the deck, there's also many spaces and lots of places dotted all over the ship to sit and sunbathe, along with multiple outside bars, with the Sky Bar and the Cabana Bar, in addition to the bars at the various pools. There were loads of nooks and crannies and interesting spaces to find to go and sit. The bigger ship also meant that they've improved some of the venues compared to their other ships, like they've added a drawing room in the grand lobby, along with a really much bigger and much nicer game room. However, something I think works less well is the greater focus on specialty dining. I know it is a really big thing on other cruise lines, but it's never been a particularly big focus for Cunard. Now, they now have 4 major specialty added cost restaurants. So Samuel's Steakhouse, which replaces the Veranda on the other ships, Ajiwa, which is next to Sir Samuel's, which is a Japanese restaurant serving Goiza sushi, baoban type stuff, Tramonto, which is more Mediterranean, and Aranya, which is kind of a more spicy, almost Indian venue. I found included dining on Queen Anne, like all the other Cunard ships, is really good. And after going to one of the specialty restaurants, I actually cancelled the others because I felt there was no need to do it, no need to spend more. But they have definitely dialed up specialty dining. They're basically those standard repetitions of what other cruise lines have. There's nothing particularly innovative, I felt, in this area. They've theoretically tried to be more innovative with the buffet restaurant, which is called the Artisan Food Hall. It's basically just the King's Court or the Leader buffet with a different name. They haven't gone as far as cruise lines like Virgin or the Food Hall in Norwegian, which have gone into very specific, almost branded food stations. Basically, it's their usual buffet restaurant with another name, in my view. One change is that the food is served by the staff, although there's some room and discussion about whether that will change over time, so we will see. They have, though, elevated some standard venues on the ship. The pool decks are a bit more themed, and they do, I think, look pretty good. The Pavilion is the largest pool, which has the roof which opens and closes. Around it, they have the Pavilion Bar, they have the Pavilion Gelateria, the Pavilion Wellness Cafe, and the Pavilion Grill, which serves things like hot dogs, hamburgers. It looks really good with kind of the black and white tiles, lots of seating, and also lounges. Then at the rear of the ship is the Panorama Pool Club, although I'm not quite sure why it's called a club. There's a small stage, some seating, and of course lounges. It's a nice area with a bar, and it's really ideal for warm weather cruises. They have got a much better space for the shore excursions and future cruise sales teams as well too. The casino they've renamed Room 1840, which is the year that Cunard came into being. Like other ships, it's on Cunard, it's small. I guess it shows they expect this to be a mostly UK passenger ship, and it's mostly going to be sailing and based out of Southampton, doing no-fly cruises. So it's going to have mostly UK passengers. It has a nice bar area here too. Queen Anne also has, which many people will be very pleased to know, guest laundry rooms, which are free to use on all cabin decks. Talking of cabins, I'm not going to delve into these in depth, as there are several really good video tours that I will link to in the description, other than to say the cabins are a big improvement on the more dated ones on the rest of the fleet, especially the bathrooms, which have good-sized showers and glass doors. There are some divided views on the amount of storage, particularly in the Britannia cabins though, but overall I think the cabins are really, really good. By the way, on the decks with cabins, the designers have built in signals to help passengers find their way around the ship. There are arrows in the carpets which direct you towards the nearest lift. Each of the 4 lift areas are color-coded, so the carpets point you to a particular color-coded set of lifts. My mum, who really struggled to find her way around the ship, would have really liked this addition. So Queen Anne, while inside it looks different, it has all the iconic and standard Cunard venues with few additions and innovations. But what about the program? Is this a very different and new Cunard trying to talk to a different Cunard user and a different traveler? But before I get into that, if you enjoy my content and tips, why not consider becoming a YouTube channel member or Patreon patron? For just a few dollars a month, you get ad-free early access every week to new videos, exclusive bonus on-cruise and channel behind-the-scenes videos, group cruise priority booking, ebooks to download, and bonus cruising tips. Click join on YouTube below any of my videos or visit patreon.com/tipsfortravelers to find out more. Now back to Queen Anne. The answer to the question around is the program different is no. It's absolutely 100% the same Cunard program. They still have the dress code, and most people on Golden Lights were wearing tuxedos and glamorous gowns. It's still very much a dress up and dress code kind of audience. Guests not wanting to do that could dress down. They could use like the Artisan's Food Hall, the Golden Lion Pub, Bright Light Society, the casino, but it still is very much that kind of dress up vibe, and that was very much the feel of the ship still. If I show you the daily programs, it looks like any daily program from the Cunard ship when it comes to activities. It features the grand daily afternoon tea in the Queen's room, ballroom dancing every evening, themed balls, black and white masked and roaring 20s balls, dance classes, chair-aerobics, trivia, live music in the lounges, and a big focus on enrichment. There were still 4 guest speakers, a celebrity speaker, and 3 others talking about history, culture, geography, politics, and so on, as they do on the other ships. In terms of the theatre shows, they are, though, trying to update the theatre shows, but it's not dramatic changes overall. They had a standard cruise song and dance show called Let's Dance. They then had Brief Encounter, a reworking of the Noel Coward play, and a modern take on Jane Austen called Pride and Prejudice, sort of, with kind of pop classics. So they are trying to kind of do something different. There were lots of guest entertainers with comedians telling the usual jokes you always hear by cruise ship comedians. There were current and past West End singers, boy groups, violinists, and so on. So still very much the same as on other ships. Most people I spoke to, by the way, did feel the amount of entertainment was good. They enjoyed the shows, they enjoyed the caliber of the guest entertainers. I came away asking, based on all of this, who is Queen Anne really for? Me as a regular Cunarder, or is it talking to new people? I personally think it's designed mostly for the current Cunard traveller. It's also likely to be so because a lot of that crowd are going to come on because the ship is taking over Cunard's no-fly itineraries from Queen Victoria, and many people I spoke to are planning to switch to Queen Anne because Queen Victoria is now going to be doing fly cruising and they want to do no-fly cruising. I did talk to many people, by the way, who were trying Cunard for the very first time, particularly coming from celebrity. They were attracted by the new modern ship and what they thought would be a reinvention of Cunard. Most, by the way, were disappointed, but not with the ship, which they liked because it's modern and stylish, but they found the Cunard program to still be a little bit dull, a little bit stuffy. The entertainment wasn't as innovative and out there and boundary pushing as perhaps it is on lines like Celebrity, which are much more modern. The kids clubs called The Zone are still really small. They haven't really opened up big new spaces for kids clubs, so they're not trying to talk to families, in my view. I did use the analogy during the trip that I felt a bit like Cunard had kind of chartered a modern ship and were running their program on it. It's a new look and feel, but still a very traditional Cunard experience with little change. Now, I really enjoyed my time on board. I came to love the ship as I got to know it. But if you're expecting something different, then you're not going to get it if you go on Queen Anne. If you're looking for a more contemporary modern ship to try a Cunard experience, try Cunard venues for the very first time, you are going to find it on there for sure. It's a great option, I think, for anyone wanting to try Cunard for the first time. Now, the premium grills experience on Queen Anne is also really interesting, and I experienced what they've changed and what does and doesn't work. So join me over in this video where I'm going to dive into that in more detail. See you over there.